So tonight, we're starting the new prophet, Rebecca, and the whole class will be solely on this particular minor prophet. You can kind of see he's lined up with all the other prophets that we've talked about and we'll talk about. So my verse for tonight is chapter 1, verse, I think that's a 5. It is. Look among the nations, watch, be horrified, be frightened, be speechless. For I am accomplishing a work in your days. You would not believe it even if you were told. Before we begin our class, let's say a class prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you for this evening that we come together and learn more about you and especially your prophets that prophesied a long time ago and connections we're making with history of Israel, but also how it plays a part today in your church, especially your son. The prophecies of your son are written in so many different places in the Old Testament. I'm so glorified that we can learn more about what they prophesied and what the Israelites knew at that time, but just really didn't pay attention. We're so glorified that we can learn more about your son and also what you would have us do and how we could reach more people and give them the good news of your son and hope of heaven one day. Just be with me tonight as I go through this class, and I pray that we can learn something and be beneficial to our lives. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. So, in the news this week, I saw this today as I was going through some different news articles. Anybody know what that might be?
Nahum?
It is.
A piece of pottery?
Nehum?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Very small.
Yeah.
I could have had the scale. That would have been another picture, another host slide, John. So this was in the news today, just today. And actually, this was something that they found very, very recently, actually back in October. It says, archaeologists screamed with excitement after unearthing evidence of biblical power struggle beneath Jerusalem. Cuneiform fragment 2,700 years ago shows correspondence between the Syrian Empire and Kingdom of Judah. A group of excavators recently uncovered the first ever Assyrian inscription found in Jerusalem, shedding light on an ancient power struggle described in the Bible. The artifact was found in rubble near the western wall beside the mountain. The inscription specifies a deadline, specifically the first day of the month AD. Is there a way to pronounce that?
My guess is
which is the 5th month of the biblical calendar. I think this is a Jewish pronunciation. It mentions a chariot officer. Although the fragment does not include the name of the king of Judah to whom the message was addressed, chronological content and partial text suggests it was sent to the court of one of the Judean kings. Could have been Hezekiah, Manasseh, or Josiah. Could even been maybe the king we're going to be talking a little bit about tonight after Josiah. Early in his reign, when Judah was a vassal kingdom under Assyria. The discovery strengthens the understanding of the depth of the Syrian presence in Jerusalem and the extent of its influence on the city's construction. Fascinating. Before this, there was no evidence that I guess we had any association with Assyria as far as being in the city of Jerusalem. Now they found I wouldn't call it a cuneiform, but it was on a big rock. They had a inscription where it was Jude, Jehu was kneeling before an Assyrian king. So there is evidence of association between Assyria and the Israelites. But this is the first time they found it inside the city. So this is a big deal, which just gives us more evidence of how all this ties together. And there it is again. Can you read that, Kyle?
Yeah, it says you have until
to pay up, or else. So we are again with Becca. His name means embrace, and gives you the time period. We think it's somewhere in the range of 612 to 606, or even a little bit earlier, but not much. Let's go ahead and do this, since it's a new prophet. Aaron, what's the one? Oh.
Only Jesus justifies all hopeful members.
Okay, and then the other.
Only
Well, you gave me the other.
Across high mountains.
Yeah, Jews, a journey across high mountains, and then the one that kind of corresponds to our 6. We have Z stands for Zion needs to. Not yet. Humbly here, zealous messengers. Of course, that was from Kyle. Appreciate it. It's a really good one. So, timeline of ancient Israel. I'm going to just let you guys kind of look at this for just a few seconds and just give me a couple of inferences you come up with this timeline. Anything you want to come up with this timeline. I have a couple that I've kind of looked at, thought about. What are some things you guys have come up with? Karen wants to go first.
That's what it says.
I just think I'll give you a couple more. I just think it's interesting that, of course, the land of Canaan was taken over by the Israelites, and within only a couple of 100 years, they wanted what? They wanted a king, right? The people wanted a king, and God gave them a king. So they started having kings. And then what happened with the kinghood? What happened after another couple of 100 years?
It only took 3 kings to divide the kingdom.
Divide the kingdom after 3 kings, right? And then we had 2 different kingdoms. We had the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. I think it was 10 tribes in the northern kingdom and 2 tribes in the southern kingdom. So did that work out? Having kings? No. It didn't work out because the northern kingdom was taken over by the Assyrians, 722. But then 620. I think this is an interesting date. What does it say about 620?
Religious revival. A
religious revival. That's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. So, who might have been the king around 620? Josiah. And what did Josiah do?
He starts turning people, attempting to turn the people back to God. They're going to discover the law. They're going to tear down idols in the land, and start trying to reestablish proper worship.
Do you think a lot of people will follow that?
Yeah, I would say while the king is mandating it, I believe it's
Did anything really bad happen with Israel? Would it be the Israelites at this time? Would it still be called the Israelites, even though it's like, kingdom of Judah? They're still Israelites, right? I mean, technically.
Yeah. They're still the children of Israel.
There we go. I don't think anything really bad happened, right? During this particular time.
No, not until so Josiah will die in battle against the Assyrians, well, with Egypt, who will eventually wage war with Syria and bring them in. So it's after his death. So no.
But before he went to Megiddo, things were going pretty well. And then after, I think it was 609, things went south. Things went south quick. And you can see, not too long after Josiah's kingship, that Judah was eventually taken over and Jerusalem was destroyed. And there you go. So there you go.
I would imagine having the Assyrians hanging out just in the north could also help promote a religious revival.
How so?
Well, somebody might have remembered they got some help with some of their battles in years past. You know, there's an old saying I like to think about a lot. It says some people get religion because they see the light, and others because they feel the heat. I think there's a lot of that with Judah.
So the nations, sometimes they were in good terms with each other, and sometimes they were in bad terms with each other, and sometimes they were trying to pal around with the other nations to go against some other nations. It was kind of in flux, right? Pretty much throughout the ancient history. So, you guys remember this? Yes, you do. Which of these prophets represents Habakkuk? And so we can, again, start, and we're going to eliminate. And Shirley will eliminate probably about 9 of them. Or actually, 7 of them. Anyway, so our first prophet that we started with 1,000 years ago, I think. Just you can call a number out. So we know that with our little acronym, only, so Obadiah, number 4, only Jesus, or only Jews, so that would be Joel, Journey, or Justify, Jonah, let's see, only Jesus justifies, Amos over there in the corner, and then we have like a woman dancing, but Hosea, and the last of the first 6 would be our naked gentleman, Micah. And then the first prophet that we've been studying, mainly kind of like a judge, it is Zephaniah, which one of those would? Number 9. And then our last prophet, Nahum, was up about Nineveh. And then today we have 4 left. Hint. Go to the last verse of chapter 3. When I go to the last verse of chapter 3, I think the last sentence will give you a hint. Number 8 is correct. Something about a musical instrument, right? Is that what it says? So, I'm not going to read all the different little messages below each of the prophets except for the one we're doing tonight. And I know you can't see it because Jonathan, I'm going to have to go over here. It says, Habakkuk identifies himself as a psalmist and musician by ending the ending the book with a hymn. Redemption and grace to be played on stringed instruments by the temple worship leaders. Thank you. So who was Habakkuk? Do we know a lot about Habakkuk? Do we know where he's from? Do we know who his father was, his grandfather, his cousin? Kind of like Zephaniah, I think we knew 4 generations. We don't know anything about that. We don't know where he's from. We don't know who his father is. We don't know anything, really. We do know that he lived at the same time as Zephaniah and Jeremiah, and he had a really cool style, especially chapter 3. It's kind of like Psalms and other books of wisdom. Very good style. You guys remember this? That's right. That's right. You got some good kings and you got some bad kings. So we'll just go down through here. You tell me which one are good. 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 Bad, bad, bad. Good, bad. Good, bad, good, bad. Good. Bad, really bad. Very good. And then bad and good. And then we have bad, and then we have good. The last good. A king. And then the rest of these guys were very bad, and then all of Israel, Miss Shirley, were bad. Not one single king in the northern kingdom was good. None of them. And so that's why they went. I guess they fell to Samaria in 722. Anyway, there's. I guess that's supposed to be that right there. First one, chapter 1, the oracle, also birth or prophecy might be in your translation, which the prophet Habakkuk saw. And what does it mean by oracle? The word oracle comes from the Latin word orare. Orare? Well, it sounds good. To speak. And properly refers to a prophet expressing a prophecy. That makes sense. An oracle is a person considered to provide insight, wisdom, counsel, or predictions, including foreknowledge of the future inspired by God. So this is an oracle of Habakkuk inspired by God. He's considered the questioning prophet. Habakkuk is sometimes called the questioning prophet because he did not accept things as he found them, but wanted to know why they were as they were. He took his questions to Jehovah, which sounds like Job. So a question that might have been asked back with Habakkuk might have been, when will God lift his hand to change the tide and cause justice to reign on the earth? And today, we might say, why doesn't God take care of the evil in the world? Now, the other prophets plead God's case to the people, and Habakkuk pleads the people's case to God. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I didn't turn my little thing on. So we're going to have to go back and do all this again. It'd be like me teaching second period. And then I had to teach third period. The same stuff. And then fourth period. Whew. I was always my best at the fourth period. After I've taught it 3 times, my fourth period was awesome. My last period was terrible. I was so wore out. Anyway, I think Alana had me early in the day, so she got first class. First class wasn't so great because I didn't have my timing down. It's like a comedian, you have to get your timing, and let's go ahead, you didn't have your timing. My fourth period, I had my timing down pretty good. I was rocking it. What problem did Habakkuk bring before the Lord? And I have 4 choices. I have justice comes out of confusion. If you want to go to verses 2 through 4 of chapter 1, justice is never upheld. The law is ignored. The wicked hide their faces. Jonathan's got one. What problem did Habakkuk bring before the Lord? And there's your 4 choices. You got A, B, C, or D. And there's 3 choices that are correct.
Justice is never upheld, isn't it?
That is correct. So B is off the table. Two more. The law is ignored. That is correct. And then,
Justice comes after.
exactly. So there's the verses right there. How long, Lord, have I called for help, and you did not hear? I cried out to you, violence, yet you did not save. Why do you make me see disaster and make me look at hardship? Yes, devastation and violence are before me. Strife exists. Contentions arise. Therefore, the law is ignored. Justice is never upheld. For the wicked surrounds the righteous. Therefore, justice comes out of confused. Confused? Comes out confused? So Mickey wouldn't be too disappointed. There wasn't an all of the above. Another way to phrase Habakkuk's question, how can God possibly use such an evil nation to punish a people who are less wicked? So God is what? Sovereign. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord? You have ordained as the judgment, you, O rock. God is just. You who are of pure eyes then to see evil and cannot look at wrong. Verses 12 and 13 of chapter 1. Have you ever asked Habakkuk's why question about anything going on in your life? Kyle is shaking his head yes. My wife is definitely shaking her head yes. I'm thinking everyone in here at one time or another has shake their head yes. If you haven't, I want to be in your life.
Isn't it interesting how we always assume we're the less wicked?
We're the what?
We're the less wicked one.
We're the less wicked one?
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. So how do you find resolve with these questions? I mean, we could say this about today, right? I mean, we're talking about, several nations that God's going to basically have take over, in this case, Judah and before that, Israel. But we have violence today. Yes, ma'am.
I look at this and say it's all in his time, and he is giving everyone the chance to find him. That's how I see that. Is, how do you see all this and still let this go on? Well, we could ask every day, why are you not coming now? I personally hope that my brother follows God again, and I hope that he's given enough time to do that.
So we know God is patient. He's long-suffering. He wants everyone to come to Him. How many people have committed not in this room, okay, committed a crime? All right, Michael, you can tell us about that later. Who have, done a crime, and been, put in prison for a number of years. And how many of these people, I was thinking about this the other day, you watch some of these criminals and they're terrible. They're terrible criminals. They get caught. And they get caught quite often to the point where eventually they get a number of years in jail. And I'm thinking, do they want to go to jail? Do they want to get caught? And I was trying to rationale this in my head. How do you do these things knowing you're going to go to jail? And I was thinking, well, maybe, just maybe, they have a sin in their life that they cannot beat. They can't beat it. They've tried and tried and tried, and they just can't beat it. And this is their way, I guess, getting caught and going to jail is their way of finally getting a method to stop this sin. That they don't necessarily have to battle this particular sin because they don't have a chance to commit it again. And how many of these people, when they get in jail or whatever, have a what we call come to Jesus moment, where they actually do come to Jesus and they actually commit their lives to Christ, and then they influence people inside the jail themselves, and maybe their family who've given up on them maybe, and they find out, I think he has changed. I don't know, we get caught in the cycle of sin and you just want to escape and you don't know how to do it. I don't know, do some people just think this is their way to stop the cycle? I don't know, that was just a thought I had. So how do we resolve? God is patient. God is wanting my daughter Maggie to eventually come back to Christ. Your brother to come back to Christ. We all probably have someone in this class who knows someone that is lost, and you pray maybe every night that they would see the light.
Robbie?
Yes, sir.
On that previous slide, this is not to do with the Babylonians. This is to do with Israel.
It is.
With Judah.
It is.
And specifically, what he's seeing is somewhat different than the patience of God. What he's seeing is what seems like the injustice of God. Because this is not, I see God giving these people time. It's or maybe it is seeing him give them time, but I don't think he should. When he says, why don't you, when I cry for help, why is it that you don't hear it? Whenever I see violence, and I point it out, there's wickedness going on. You don't save the people that you save. Why do you let injustice happen? Why do you let bad things happen? To the people that are supposed to be able to call out to you and you rescue them, why do you let that go on? And something about the timing of this that's interesting to me is this is during a good king. And it's particularly towards the end of the good king's reign. It's towards the end of Josiah's life that Habakkuk will start speaking this. But that doesn't mean that everything that's gone on in Israel has gotten better. That seems to be the problem, is just because they have a king that shows up and says things are going to get better, it takes a while for that to trickle down, and it doesn't always go to everybody. But there's something that Habakkuk doesn't maybe recognize. God told his people on multiple occasions, Ezekiel 18 is one of them, if you turn away from doing wrong, I'll relent from bringing curses. Well, that's exactly what happened in the days of Hezekiah. And so Hezekiah is spared, but then you have a series of bad judges, and we start to wonder again, is God's judgment going to come? And then Josiah shows up. So if you're really close to that, maybe you see, hey, our leader, our king, has turned back to God, and God is relenting. But if you're not really close to that, if you're just somebody on the street that doesn't know about all that's going on, I wonder if it would seem more like I don't have the whole picture, and I'm just really, really upset about the bad things that are going on all around me, and it feels like God's not doing anything, when in fact, God's doing exactly what he said he would do. He's being faithful to his promise.
So if Josiah had a father, or the king before Josiah had been faithful and did everything Josiah did, or even if the son of Josiah did the same things, that eventually you're saying more and more people would...
I'm saying if Habakkuk could somehow got picked up to God's level and seen there is good going on, you just don't see it.
Right.
Maybe he would not have seen God the way that he sees it.
I got you.
But that's not Habakkuk's fault because he's not in God's position.
Yeah.
So from where he is, all he sees is violence. He doesn't see the big picture that God sees. And that'll come true. That'll be even more clear whenever God says, this is how I'm going to deal with all this. He doesn't see the big picture there either with the Chaldeans. But it could just be that the problem in the beginning of Habakkuk with the question that he questioned, how do we resolve this, is we're just altogether too close to it. Violence and injustice and wrongness happening around us.
Because we're talking about Jerusalem here. We're not talking about the Babylonians here. He's talking about
Jerusalem acting this way.
Right.
And when that happens around us, that's all you see. When the bad comes into your life, it's really hard to see what good things are going on around you. And so it could be that these questions that he has about God are because that's all he can see. From his vantage point, that's the only thing. And, it's interesting because at the end of before he says to be sing this on stringed instruments, he's going to say, God, you lift me up to a high place. And I wonder if maybe he just is saying, God, help me see from your vantage point.
That's a good point. I know when you talk about living in a bubble, people live in a bubble, they don't really understand really what's going on in the world because they live in their own little world and they don't know. Is that what you're saying kind of here, that it's kind of a bubble going on in Jerusalem? He only sees the bad?
Well, yeah, he sees what's around him.
Yeah.
And he's not able to see. And we do that with everything, with suffering. Josh made that point in the gospel meeting really, really well. When suffering comes, we see it up close, and we have a hard time being able to be far enough away to see what it really could be.
Good point. Thank you. So, why did God pick this time in history of Israel to bring a total end to a once proud nation? Let's do this. Who was the king of Judah at the time of Habakkuk? He was, but then he decided he wanted to go up to Megiddo, right? And he got wounded. And I don't know if he made it back to Jerusalem before he died, but he died. And they buried him in Jerusalem, but he was away. So who took the place of Josiah? The next in line only lasted, I want to say, maybe 6 months. I could go back to that one. He only lasted 6 months. I think what happened is he got in power, and Egypt decided that they wanted someone else. I think Egypt's pharaoh was Necho. Is that who it was, Kyle?
Yeah, Necho.
And I think he commissioned another son of Josiah, and his name was Jehoiakim. So Jehoiakim was actually, I think, around most of the time Habakkuk was prophesying. And he actually reigned for several years. It wasn't like he only got in there for a few months or just a few years. I think he reigned for 11 years. I thought it was over 10. So 11 years. Could Jehoiakim been a factor in God's judgment on Judea at this time in history? I don't know if this goes back to what Kyle was talking about. We had reforms. We had a good king. There was still violence, and there was still wrongdoing in the city of Jerusalem. If Josiah's son, in this case it had been Jehoiakim, had been a better king like his father, and continued with the reading of the law and the worship and the temple and those type of things, but he was not a very good king. He was not a very good king at all, and so things went south. So I'm going to have someone read Jeremiah 22:13 through 18. Who wants to read? It's right up there, Jonathan, if you want to read it up there.
Woe to him that builds his house without righteousness, and his upstairs rooms without justice, who uses his neighbor's services without pay, and does not give him his wages, who says, I'll build myself a large house with spacious upstairs rooms, cut out its windows, paneling it with cedar, and painting it with bright red. You become a king because you are competing in cedar. Did your father not eat and drink and do justice and righteousness?
So kind of goes back to what Kyle was saying. What do you see in there that's not quite kosher when it comes to treating others fairly?
Lot.
Well, there's almost everything up there. You've got your neighbor services without pay, so they're doing things for free basically for you. You live in a large house, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's the point where you want to let everyone know that you live in a large house with a spacious upstairs with cut-out windows, and you've got, paneling, cedar paneling. You've got bright red. I guess that was a color that showed status, maybe, royalty. Are you competing in cedar? I don't know if that's a reference to maybe trying to compete with other palaces or whatever.
Cedar came, a lot of times came from Lebanon.
Yeah.
It was a status.
Yeah, it was a status thing as well.
And it was usually used for palaces or temples.
Exactly. Did your father not eat and drink and do justice and righteousness? This would probably be who? Josiah, I would think. Josiah? Okay, Jonathan, you want to read the rest of that?
Then it was well for him. He pled the cause of the afflicted and the poor, then it was well. Is that not what it means to know me, declares the Lord? That your eyes and your heart are intent only upon your own dishonest gain, shedding innocent blood, and on practicing oppression and extortion. Therefore, this is what the Lord says regarding Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah.
Infer this. Make an inference here. Why would God pick this time to end the kingdom of Judah? After, almost 400 years?
Because it says your eyes and your heart are intent only upon your own dishonest gain and on shedding innocent blood and practicing oppression and extortion.
Sounds a lot like, and the people did evil continually in the days of Noah.
Exactly. God, He knows all. He knows the future. He knows what's going to happen. And if we had His foresight, what would we predict would happen to Judah in the next 100 years? Right. I mean, how bad does it have to get? It's already bad. We know that some of the children of Israel actually worshipped Moloch right outside the walls of Jerusalem. We know that. We know that in Amos they were fixing the scales so they could deceive people, and they lived in winter houses and summer houses. And here we had this really good king for Josiah was, help me out. He became a king at 8 years old, and he died at 31. So roughly, do the math there, that's 23 years that he was king. And yet, after 23 years, you get another son of Josiah, and things are going south really, really fast. Practicing oppression and extortion. And Kyle said, a king can have a little influence, but it takes some time. I think that's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah. and part of the when we saw this with also with Zephaniah, part of the problem is a king doesn't change a nation. A king can turn back to God. The people can still say, we're going to do the things the king has said we have to do, but our hearts aren't going to turn back to the Lord.
It's individual. It's the individual. Kind of like today, we make individual choices.
It's even more interesting, this is his son, right?
It is his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't walk in the ways of his father.
No. And it's not like he didn't have some people talking at this time. He had Jeremiah. I mean, come on. So, just, so I can see Habakkuk's frustration with in this case, Jerusalem and Judah.
But I wonder if there's also not a sense where God has made a promise to David that one of your descendants is going to sit on the throne and rule forever. That's a promise to bring around the Messiah. He's going to have to protect Judah. He's going to have to protect David's line for that. At the rate they're going, there's going to be no line left.
Yeah.
With how they're, repetitively, with their wickedness and with their foolish decisions. And I wonder if there's a sense where the exile is also a preservation of the Davidic line. And so, why at this time? Because maybe if you don't do it now, in a couple of years, there's no Davidic line.
There's not going to be anything left.
Yeah.
Wow. Life in Judah was difficult during the reign of Jehoiakim, and Habakkuk described the conditions of that time in his opening prayer. He cries, "Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abound." According to Jeremiah 22:13 through 19, after Josiah Belwood, Josiah died in 609. Jehoiakim turned away from the positive reforms his father had made, while Josiah did what was right and just. Jehoiakim was different. His heart was set on dishonest gain, which is what Jonathan read in Jeremiah, on shedding innocent blood and oppression and extortion. God's long suffering had ended after a reign of a godly king and reformer, only to have it all wiped away once again by a son content on pride, and that would be Jehoiakim. So basically, we're going to get into more of the chapters Sunday. But basically, chapter 1, verses 1 through 11, it's the first problem. Why does God allow wicked practices to continue in the land? God's answer, I will eventually bring judgment, later on in that chapter. Problem 2, which is also the last part of chapter 1 and first part of, or middle of chapter 2. Problem 2, why will God use wicked people to punish others? And God answer, I will judge even those whom I use for judgment. And then his last verse, or chapter, is Habakkuk's psalm. It's praise for the person of God, praise for the power of God, praise for the purpose of God, and praise because of faith in God. So we know that a lot of these minor prophets, they start with, in a lot of cases, all the bad things that are going on, but then they always have, in a lot of cases, some good things to say. And I guess this is Habakkuk's way of having some good to say with praising God. As far as the date, God mentions Babylon as a tool he will use to punish Judah. This probably dates the prophecy after the fall of Nineveh, which we found out was 612, when Assyria was still the dominant world power. It seems obvious from chapter 3, verse 12, that Babylon has not yet reached Judah. The first groups of captives, including Daniel and his 3 friends, were taken to Babylon in 605 BC, not too long after Josiah was killed. The structure of the book must have occurred sometime between the dates of 612 and 605 BC, in that range, and this makes Habakkuk roughly a contemporary with Jeremiah and Zephaniah, and slightly later than Nahum. Why does God seem silent in verse 2? After he posed the 2 questions, the first question is in verse 2, where he was asking, how long shall I cry to you and you not hear? Not only are things morally corrupt, but it seems God is inactive. I think Kyle was alluding to that about Habakkuk's question. Rebecca says that God has not heard his cries and isn't being active in the midst of the situation. God is supposed to be filled with justice and righteousness, but it seems that he is apparently unmoved. Josiah was a king who brought reforms, and he was killed in battle. Where is God in all this? And that question I posed earlier, have we all kind of had questions about, those type of things to God? And sometimes we don't get a what? We don't get an answer. And we're wondering, is God listening? Is he listening? How do we answer that?
Yes.
Yes, and long suffering, because he wants everyone to come to repentance. But in hardship, what do we know? What do we know from experience when we have hardships? What does that do for us? It's supposed to strengthen us. I think that's biblical. It strengthens us.
And it kind of clouds our view, so we think that maybe God is not listening.
Yes. I know in our life, with several things that's happened in our life, we didn't at the time think we're going to get through it. We did not think we're going to get through it. A lot of prayers from other people, a lot of requested prayers, and at the time we didn't think we were going to get through it. And some of the things that we've gone through in our lives didn't just resolve in a week or a month. It took years to resolve. And we kept thinking, is this going to get better? Is this going to get better?
I think we have to remember too that it's not the hardship that makes us stronger, it's God that makes us stronger. Without God, the hardship can make us callous, it can make us bitter, it can make us a lot of different things. But it's only through faith and through having the perspective of, this is not my home.
Yeah.
This is not what I'm living for. There's something better, there's something more important. And this is temporary.
Yeah.
That's what makes us strong.
Yeah, I agree. Many times I look up and I'm thinking, this is not permanent. This is not where I'm supposed to be forever. And we just have to put our trust and our faith in God. But you're right. Thank you, John. All right, thank you for your attention, your comments. I appreciate it.